Welcome to this free immigration help channel. Today is April 27, 2024, and today we're going to be talking about the family-based immigration interview that a lot of people are waiting, I know, on this channel. A lot of people who are subscribed, because that's what most of the times we are talking about. That's what most of the questions are about, is when the interview is going to be scheduled. And of course, while we are waiting, the best thing that we can do is we can be as prepared as possible for as soon as the interview is scheduled. You can take care of your medical examination, go for an interview, get that immigrant visa, that I-551 stamp in your passport, and hopefully immigrate into the United States of America. So that's what we're going to be talking about, how to prepare for family-based immigration interview. Now, your form I-130, you have filed it. It has been approved by USCIS. After it was approved, your case was transferred to the NVC for further processing, or CAEC, sometimes we call it this way, that way. And with NVC, you become documentarily qualified. Depending on which category you're in, you might be waiting a little bit longer for your NVC portal to open up. If your immediate relative category or if your priority date is soon to be current, the NVC portal opens up. You fill out all documentation, DS-260, which is the application for the immigrant visa, your affidavit of support, you submit the documents, you become documentarily qualified. Once you are documentarily qualified, your case is then sent to the US Embassy where the beneficiary is, where in the country where the beneficiary is. So closer to the location where the beneficiary is, for the interview to be scheduled. And again, depending on which category and depending on how long of a wait list there is in that particular US Embassy, you will be waiting for your interview. Typically, it used to be between 6 months and a year. Now it seems to be shifted a little bit more. I'm suspecting that it is due to the whole closures that we experienced during the pandemic with the whole COVID-19 thing. So now we are waiting a little bit longer. Hopefully those numbers will come down. So you know that you have been waiting for a while. You know that your interview is to be scheduled quite soon, potentially by the end of this year. How do you prepare? There are a few resources that I will provide. They are all from official government sources. In this case, it's going to be mostly travel.state.gov, which is government website for US Department of State, specifically their Bureau of Consular Affairs that deals with all the immigrant visas and family immigrant visas including. So I will provide all these links in the description below. I would definitely recommend you going through them because there is a step for the applicant interview preparation, which gives you briefly everything that you need to bring, which is pretty straightforward. The appointment letter that you will receive, the announcement of that interview, all right? And most of the times you get the appointment letter 30 days before the actual interview. Very rarely they send it 60 days, but in most of the situations it is 30 days before the interview. So let's say if your interview is scheduled already for September 1st, 2024, you're not going to find out up until August 1st, 2024. That's when you will receive your appointment letter. The reason why they do that is because at the moment they're working on changing it, and hopefully it will change, but at the moment you have to have your medical examination done within the 30 days before the interview. There's a conversation going to increase to 6 months instead of 1 month to 6 months. So if that happens, that would be obviously great. That way we will know, immigrants, prospective immigrants will know not 30 days in advance that their interview is scheduled, but 6 months in advance, which is a lot better. You're not in the dark for that much longer. Obviously, you're bringing your passport. That's where your immigrant visa, hopefully after successful completion of the interview, will go. You're bringing the photographs, which is 2 identical photographs, just like you would do for passport, for non-immigrant visa. There's photograph requirements, so I would highly recommend you checking that out and making sure that you follow these requirements, because they need to be specific size, they need to have the white background, they need to have no digital alterations to them. So check out the requirements. Again, these links will be in the description below. DS260 confirmation page. Now that is the confirmation page. That's not the whole DS260. It's just the confirmation page that you received once the DS260 was submitted. And a lot of times that page has a barcode on it. That's the page that you will be bringing with you as well. Make sure you have that. And then the supporting documents, which here it says original or certified copies of all civil documents you uploaded into your CAC. And this is one of the very important things. It applies to everyone, whatever family category you're in. And it has to be originals, obviously. If, let's say, for example, you had a passport that expired and you're coming with a new passport, definitely have the certified copies of your old passport. If there is some kind of document that original is not available, certified copies. Make sure you follow that, because we are, in order to become documentary qualified, you submit through the NVC portal, which is what the CAC is. You submit the copies of the document. So you get documentarily qualified with the copies of the document. So one of the goals for the interview for consul is to verify that the documents, the copies that were submitted to NVC for documentary qualification are available in the original. So that's one very important thing to keep in mind. If some of the documents are in other languages, make sure to bring the English translations. And of course, there's if you have not paid the fee, the DS260 fee, which a lot of times you have to pay the DS260 fee during your NVC documentary qualification process. But if you haven't, in that case, you're bringing the fees as well. So these things, they apply to everyone, whatever category you're in. But we will talk in a little bit in detail for each specific category, and if it's a for preference category, if it's immediate relative category, if it's children involved, if it's parents, if it is husband, wife, we're going to talk about this in details. But there is one more thing that I wanted to point out in this very helpful resource, I think, that I definitely recommend you checking it out before we move on to the next one, is there is, as for each specific US embassy or consulate around the world, there is their own interview preparation instructions, and it is this link right here. There's two of them, this one and this one. It's the same link, and if you click on it, it will open up this page, which again is official government website from travel.state.gov, and you can tell by ending gov. Make sure all the information that you're getting from regarding immigration, especially, make sure it's always from government websites. So this is the list of consulates, embassies throughout the world. So let's say, for example, you are expecting your interview to happen in Beirut. All right, so we're going to click on Beirut, and hopefully it doesn't take too short. There you go. So US Embassy in Beirut, there you go. It gives you step-by-step, create a profile by selecting an address, registration for document delivery. Okay, so there is an extra step that you have to do here. I have not seen it in the embassy that I have my personal case for my brother. If you have been subscribed to this channel, you know that I myself am an immigrant, and I myself am dealing with for family preference, F4 specifically. So yeah, there is not that kind of step in the embassy where he's going to have his interview in the next 13 years. But there is in Beirut, as you can see, very helpful to check it out. Then you get the medical exam in Lebanon. So looks like in Lebanon, that's where you're getting your medical examination. And there is a medical exam instructions link, which brings us down to here. So there's a few approved physicians in Lebanon that you can pick from. Their contact information, their emails, so you can call them up in advance, you can ask the questions. So there you go, here's an additional step for you to prepare. Complete your pre-interview checklist. So they give you a pre-interview checklist. Let's see what that is. So again, a copy of your NVC interview letter, unexpired passport, valid for 6 months beyond your interview date, 2 color photographs of each person applying for visa, square, 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, in addition to the 6 photographs required for the medical exam. please review our online photo requirements. Confirmation page for the DS-260, which is already we are familiar with that because it's general for everybody. Your original birth certificate and an English translation, medical examination results in the sealed envelopes. You see, so they give you the sealed envelope. A lot of times, sometimes they send the sealed envelope directly to the US Embassy, so they don't give you, but looks like in Beirut, in Lebanon, they do. So you see, things are from US Embassy to US Embassy, they are different. So make sure to prepare as much as possible in advance by going to your specific US Embassy, US Consulate as well. That will help you quite a lot. Okay, now we're done with that. Now you can do your own research on this, on your specific country. Let's talk about the categories. Let's start with the easiest one, and that I would say would be the immediate relative category. Whenever you are a US citizen petitioning for your parents. That is the easiest one. And for children under 21, because once you apply for children, their age is frozen, there is no aging out, that's it, their age is frozen and they're going to be going as children. It is the easiest because you're going to have the least amount of questions asked during the interview whenever it comes to establishing the relationship. And that's one of the things that you will have to be concerned about if husband and wife, if there is a marriage relationship that is involved. We will talk about it in a little bit. So, you're applying, you're a US citizen, you're petitioning for your parents. The only thing that is needed for your parents to establish the relationship, the parental relationship with you, is your birth certificate. And that's what they ask, that's what you show, that's really it. Same thing with children of US citizens. You're showing their birth certificates, you're listed as a father, you're listed as a mother, that's it. The relationship is established. No more questions about relationship. Now, immediate relative category, whenever it comes to husband and wife, yes, it is still, one of those very favorable categories because you don't have to wait for a visa bulletin you don't have to wait for your priority date to become current on the visa bulletin. But there's a little bit of the extra that needs to happen is you would have to answer some of the questions during the interview that are more oriented to establish the relationship between husband and wife as a legitimate marital relationship. Unfortunately, because there's a lot of fraud in immigration, field of immigration law that is involved whenever it comes to marital relationships. People doing fictitious marriages, they're getting married for a green card, they're getting married. They hurt themselves, they hurt the others, they hurt the system, they hurt everyone around them. It's not a good thing to do. It's not a morally right thing to do. Marriage is a sacred thing between a husband and wife. But this is a different conversation. That is why there are additional questions that you are to expect as a husband, as a wife, whether you are in immediate relative category or let's say you're in F2A category as a husband and wife of a permanent resident. The same thing. Be prepared to answer questions that establish the relationship. And those questions can range really from anything that really you can think of. They can be very personal, maybe potentially sometimes uncomfortable, but most of the times it's going to be like, where was your wedding? Where did you celebrate your wedding? Where did you go for your honeymoon? What kind of something your wife prefers? When was the last time you've seen your wife? What is her favorite food? Maybe I'm being a little bit extra with the food, but expect potentially even questions like this. Because obviously, if you cannot answer a generic question like what is your wife's favorite food, well, perhaps maybe you don't have a close of a relationship with your wife, all right? And that is already a red flag in the eyes of the consul, in the eyes of the person who is taking your interview. So be prepared for that. That is why I said easier parents or children, because it's very simple to establish the relationship. However, when it comes to marital relationships, it's not easy. And that's why there is a whole separate category called conditional residence if the marriage is younger than, I believe it's 1 year or 2 years. I think it might be 2 years. So if you have not been married for 2 years, if your marriage is younger than 2 years, then it's going to be conditional residence that your beneficiary, your wife, your husband who's immigrating to be here in the United States with you, they will receive the conditional residence, and in a time you will have to actually apply for the removal of that conditional residence. Okay, so now we're clear with that. Easier for children, but not always, because there's 4 family preference categories. There is F1 if you're over 21, and whether you're a US citizen, you're gonna be waiting for a long time for your son or daughter if they are over 21. It becomes even longer to wait for the priority date to become current if your son or daughter who are over 21 are now married. And the same thing for the permanent residence. There's F2A category for children who are under 21 of a permanent resident, and then there's F2B category for unmarried sons and daughters over 21 of a permanent resident. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention here, whenever it comes to preparation, that a lot of people don't seem to, concentrate on as much as needed. If you have children involved in your case, and your case is not immediate relative category, then one of the steps of the preparation, I highly suggest you do the calculation of the CSPA, whether your child qualifies to be going as a child in this case, and if it is close, if they qualify under CSPA, if they're aging out very close to the date of the interview, if they qualify under CSPA or not. Because if they're not, if you calculate that it is not, and I have the separate video on this channel specifically about CSPA and how to calculate it, check it out. If you have children involved in the case, and if the case is not immediate relative category, I highly suggest that you sit down and you do all of the calculations. You can. It's not going to be exact because you don't know exactly when the interview is going to be scheduled. But if you know that your child will be aging out, let's say January 2025, and you know that there is a potential for your interview to be scheduled by the end of this year or potentially in the beginning of next year, you see, you already kind of have a more or less picture, seeing that there is a potential for your child to age out, because you don't want to be in a situation where you go for an interview and they tell you, sorry, your child age out, we cannot give your child an immigrant visa. They give immigrant visa to the whole family, but not to your child. It is a very, very upsetting situation, especially when you're dealing with one of the 4 family preference categories where you have been waiting for a very long time for the immigrant visa to become available. It is very, very unfavorable. But if that is the case, if this is happening, then you can, if you prepare in advance, if you have that more or less kind of an idea, picture, okay, potentially my child might age out, I need to search for backup avenues. Whether it's a non-immigrant visa for your child, as a student, as a visitor, exchange visitor, depending on the situation, but it is better to be prepared. So that's one of the things. Now, going back to the documents that applies for everyone. The documents that you have been documentarily qualified with, you are bringing those documents. Just like it is asked in the instructions, just we talked about in the beginning of this video. But if there were any significant updates, if there was a long time that you have been waiting past documentary qualification, it is highly advisable to bring a separate folder of the updated documents, and specifically I'm referring to financial documents. That's a lot of times is the case, just in case. Now, it is not a rule, a 100% guarantee that the new tax returns or new tax transcripts will be asked during the interview. But if they do, you have them in that separate envelope. You're presenting everything that you were documentarily qualified with. But if they look at it and say, oh, this is tax return from 2021 and 2022, where is your tax return for 2023? You don't say, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't tell me I needed to bring it because you told me that I need to bring the documents that I was documentarily qualified with. If you said it, you would have been correct, true. But you don't want to be in that situation where you have to justify yourself. You say, oh yeah, sure, there you go. I have a 2023 as well. There you go. That shows your preparedness. That shows your intent. And the last thing that I wanted to mention in this video is the last thing that will be looked at and considered as whether it's a red flag or whether it is you're good to go. It is your intent to immigrate to the United States of America and your preparedness for the interview that I described in this video, where everything I described in this video is in a way shows your preparedness to immigrate, your intent to immigrate to the United States of America, because you took it seriously, you brought everything, you are ready, you are prepared. That shows that you are serious about this process and you want to immigrate to the United States of America. But there is additional questions that will be asked about the intent, and these questions have to do with you basically being familiar, you doing research whenever it comes to living in the United States of America. And these questions can be like, where are you planning, in which state are you planning to live? What kind of work are you planning to do when you immigrate to the United States of America? If you, if let's say, for example, if you are a parent of a US citizen, immediate relative category, you might be asked, are you going to live with your son, with your daughter? Are you planning to buy the property there? What are you planning to do with your property here? What are you planning to do with your business here? Are you planning to sell it or are you planning to keep it? And of course, these questions are all asked in order to, again, establish whether you are serious about immigrating to the United States, or are you just maybe, because if you are, maybe you're applying for immigrant visa. And immigrant visa is the visa designed for people to go and immigrate to the United States of America. So you have to demonstrate your intent to immigrate to the United States of America. So keep that in mind. Keep all of these things in mind. If you have any questions after watching this video, don't hesitate to post them in the comments below. I try to do at least every other day to go through and do Q&A where I answer the questions. Most of the questions are about family immigration on this channel. Like I said, I myself am an immigrant, and I myself had multiple cases for my family, and there is one that I'm waiting on, so I can definitely relate and understand how it feels to go through this process, how it feels to wait for a very, very long time for the priority dates to become current, to prepare for an interview, the stress that is associated. So if my information was helpful, well, I hope that my information was, the information that I provided in this video was helpful. So God bless everyone. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.